And we're back. Max effort bench day. Maxing on a bench, going balls to the wall. If I don't rip my pack off again, means that I didn't try hard enough, right? Well, no, because I am learning from my mistakes, especially the recent ones with my hamstring. And I had this silly idea in my head that I wanted to bench 405 before I was even cleared to start touching a 5-pound dumbbell, because, like, for no other reason than my ego wanted to say that I could, because I wanted to feel like some kind of badass. But having the hammy tweak kind of made me remember that I am human. Stuff can still break. I'm not invincible no matter how proactive I am being. And that hammy tweak kind of scared me a little bit in regards to my tech, and probably for good reason. Because it's like, sure, I could try to bench 405 today, but what real benefit would it be to do it? Like, it's not, benching 405 today will not help me do better on meet day. And if it's not going to help me do better on meet day, is it worth taking the risk of blowing the thing off again and then needing to take another 60 minutes to get back here? And in my opinion, maybe I am just being a pussy, but I probably need more being a pussy based on my track record in lifting with the amount of dings I have caught. I'm going to take being a pussy because it's going to mean that I can live to fight another day, and it's going to mean that I am going to make the meet and have a better chance of being successful. So what I'm doing today, instead of going heavy, is actually inspired by Sam Bird. And for those of you who don't know who Sam Bird is, you should look him up, learn the history of the sport. He was one of the greatest squatters of all time, both raw and multi-ply. He was the first guy to go over 11 multi and over 9 raw. And the kicker is that he did it at 220, so just a little fella. But what my bench training is going to be inspired by is Sam's base building protocol that he used for his squat. This is from an old article that was posted on a website called Chaos and Pain. I don't think it exists anymore. There's a newer version of the article on Juggernaut that was written in like 2013. But the reason I'm going this route is, like, if I'm thinking about what I need for my bench right now, I don't need to be stronger at this moment. I'm already doing a lot of work for connective tissue tolerance on my other days with my accessories, but what I really need and what felt the most missing on that 365 was coordination. I felt like I was having trouble staying locked in and setting my upper back. I felt like I was having trouble with my timing. I felt like I was having trouble with where I should be putting the bar and where I should be placing my groove. And if I want to build that back, the SAM protocol is going to work really, really, really well for that. And what that protocol is, what he wrote about back in like 2008, was he would start his training cycle off with a 5x5 at like 50 to 60%. And instead of going up in weight week after week after week, what he would do is he would reduce rest times between sets and try to make every rep move better as he went through. And instead of progressing in weight, he was progressing in density and progressing in rep quality. And it's not going to be as aggressive as just bumping up weight every week or doing something like that, but I don't need aggression right now. I need something that's going to let me reestablish coordination. It's going to work together with the tissue tolerance work that I'm already doing, and it's going to set me up so that I can start doing closer to real max effort work down the road and not need to worry about the state of the pec or the state of my coordination or my skill benching. So we are going to get into that. Going to cut to the first work set of training after I tell you that I think first work set of training is probably going to be around 275. That's what I ran last week, so it's what I should be running this week. And I'm just going to try to make those reps better this week. So let's get warmed up and get rolling. So remember how I was saying that I wanted to push the heavier rep work for a few weeks longer on my speed day? Arms are feeling a little bit sluggish, so I'm headed to pivot on that sooner rather than later, but everything else felt good to the warm-ups. Gonna get going on set 1. So definitely a little bit sore that I want to be in my post-surgical state. So I'm gonna do something, and this pains me to say this out loud, but I do something very un-Seth-like and pull a quarter off and get good work in and continue with this theme of trying to smarten up instead of forcing it, because I don't need to force it right now, and I know that I can scale back on my Tuesday bench a little bit, and next week this will go much more betterer, and I just got to keep big picture in mind. Still a long ways out for the meet, and getting to the meet in as good of shape as I can got to be priority. So down to 225. Yay. Yeah, that's more in the pocket. So what is the bigger pussy move? Dropping down to 225 because I'm afraid of risking the pec, or staying at 275 because I'm afraid of being a pussy? Last one, make her good. So I definitely didn't like making the choice of backing off, but I at least think I'm happy with myself for making that choice. Ended up feeling pretty darn good towards the end, and it's way, way, way better than the opposite right now, which would be going back to the hospital, which I really don't want to do. And I think, like, if you're like me and you are someone who is a little bit too sendy, a little bit too risk tolerant, you probably need to get more okay with making choices on the safer side, especially if you're like me and constantly screw up on the less safe side if you want to screw up less on that side. And if you aren't like that and you're someone who is too conservative, you might need to start getting more okay with taking little risks here and there. Like, not big risks. Don't go and do something stupid and end up, with a torn pec, but maybe push a little harder here and there. Just kind of like broaden your horizons and get out there a little bit more, and you might start to see more progress. It's like, people can screw up on both ends of this. It's very, very, very hard to ride that line in the middle of, the so-called optimal, but in a way that is what we should be looking for. And I know, like, the problem that I've had is kind of like what I talked about a little bit there. Is it a bigger pussy move to back off, or is it a bigger pussy move to be afraid of being a pussy? I think most of the time, if we're making decisions based on trying not to be a pussy, it means we're probably being a pussy because we're afraid of looking like a pussy. So we should just be okay with looking like a pussy and make the smart choice. So glad I did that today. Gonna back down to a plate and do the wide grip, knees up, pec, stretchy, feel gooder intent presses there. Not gonna push them super crazy today just because I know that everything is a little bit sore feeling. So I'm gonna train them appropriately and fix Tuesday next week and do better next Friday. So, like, bench versus feet up bench, Larsen press versus knees up, the biggest differentiator between the three is where your pelvis ends up. Because like when we're feet on the ground benching, we can get into a big arch in the lumbar spine, we can crank chest up high. When we're doing the Larsen, our pelvis is a little bit more posteriorly tilted, so we can't arch quite as much. But when we go knees up, flattens our back right out, gets our rib cage down, so we're gonna be more of like a true flat back bench. And we really have to fight for stability because the legs are up. So it makes it really, really, really hard on everything around the shoulder, especially lats, especially serratus, which is part of what I'm struggling with right now. All right, on to my all-time favorite tricep movement, JM presses. And again, a little embarrassing to be only using 155 on these, but gotta remember, I am where I am. And if I wanna get back to where I was before the surgery, I gotta just keep with the steady climb on back. So let's run them. When I'm running JMs, I'm gripping ring finger on the smooth, I'm cocking the hands in a little bit, and then it's just literally close elbow until I feel a stretch in this meaty part down here, and then open elbow. Close elbow to stretch, open elbow, and then just do reps till it gets hard enough. Excuse me. So how you're gonna know if your JM presses are too wide is if instead of just like close elbow, open elbow, you have close elbow and shoulder roll. We don't want the shoulder roll in here because we want this to be a tricep exercise, not some sort of jamming the shit out of a rotator cuff exercise. So get the grip narrow enough, rotate the hands in, just put it in the triceps, put it in the elbows, and those suckers are going to grow. And I think I'm gonna run some overhead tricep extensions next because I haven't done them in a while and I kind of miss them. So tell me, are you the kind of lifter that shoves the post up their ass crack because it's more even, or do you do what I did and kind of like wrap it around your leg so you're not shoving it up your ass crack? And like I get it, like if the post is shoved up your ass crack, it does feel more even, but then the post is shoved up your ass crack. And if your butthole is touching the post, and if everyone else in the gym's butthole is touching the post, it's got to get at least a little bit unsanitary at some point, right? So like foot on the outside, butt cheek on the inside, block on the hamstring, no butthole cooties involved at all. I think I'm gonna get real in that just now and see how a dumbbell fly feels. Have not run one of those yet, so gonna be a fun time. Doing them for more of a feel good, stretchy stretch intent than a push them real hard type intent, because don't need to push you real hard on day one. Incline actually felt really, really, really good on that clavicular head, which I've been struggling to get working, so stoked on that. Run another, maybe another couple. 30s. Definitely gonna do another couple. Well, a couple from the last time I talked to you, so one more. Yeah, those were good choice. Gotta go spam some delts now. So I don't know if you guys can see this from here or not, but this is a rope machine, not a cable machine. Look at that, that's a rope. Feels deceptively smooth, or a lot smoother than you would expect it to be, considering that's a rope. But I don't know if you guys can also tell what I'm doing here, but I'm kind of like cocking myself at an angle, so I kind of have to front raise across my body. And as someone who's like struggled with front delts for a very long time, I find that this is like at least a decent way to at least make sure that they're actually contracting and actually doing some work. And they're kind of starting to grow for the first time in a very long time. So must be kind of working. Gonna run another here. Gonna go jam out on some rears now on the rear delt machine. Reverse pec deck thingy my bobber. So I know that doesn't look like a lot of range of motion, but when we think about shoulder motion, it's like, where is the socket going versus, and where is the shoulder blade going? So if the shoulder blade moves, the socket can go, like the arm can go further, but that doesn't mean we're getting more socket motion. That doesn't mean we're actually getting more rear delt. So what I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to jam into protraction as hard as I can to make it as much of just rear delt as possible. And like the rear delt itself, like the shoulder socket in this direction, doesn't have a lot of range, so you don't need a ton of range to get a ton of rear delt into it. And by jamming forward and like trying to shove my scap through as I pull with serratus, it actually becomes like a pretty decent serratus control drill as well. And you can also keep it more rear delt by like staying retracted the entire time, but then instead of serratus anchored, you're gonna be rhomboid anchored. And when I am powerlifting, I want to be more serratus anchored than I am rhomboid anchored. So that's why I want to do these with rear delt and serratus working together so that I can get better at that when I'm actually lifting. And I'm going to stop talking because the set's getting difficult. Well, I wanted to run Meadows rows earlier in the workout, but I forgot to run them earlier in the workout, so I'm going to run them now. And because I didn't run them early in the workout, I'm going to run them on the lighter side, go for more of a squeezy, spready type deal than a herky-jerky type deal. And really the thing with this is like you can spread out as you are pulling, and it really helps with locking in and spreading into the bench bar better. And if you're comparing your training to my training, I probably do a little bit more like rear delty, upper backing work than you need to because of my shoulder injury history growing up racing motocross. Like the shoulders took a really big beating, have had a lot of stuff break and then get screwed back together or sewn back together. And like the stuff back there on the shoulder blade, like it doesn't really want to work unless I'm giving it a lot of attention, telling it to work. And that's kind of the best way I've found to mitigate my shoulder issues is just training the things that don't want to work well enough that they work at least decent enough to get the job done. Like, I know that if I don't want small arms, ideally I should be prioritizing them more, running them at the beginning of the sessions when I'm fresh. But the thing is that not having a small bench is a bigger priority right now than not having small arms. So arms are getting shuffled to the end, but still gonna crank them nice and hard. And when I was single, it was easy to want to train arms hard because, you know, you're single, you want to look good, look jacked for Tinder profile pic. But when I got married, like that desire to have really big arms kind of faded. But now that little brother Cole is back in Canada and I get to stare at his gigantic pythons over there every time we're in the gym together, it's like, shit, I gotta get my shit together. I can't have people making the, oh, that's your little brother jokes anymore. So cranking on them guns, even if it is at the end of the session. Like, I like dumbbell curls, I like hammer curls. They both feel good. And I want to think that I don't need different curl variations. Like, is closing my elbow going to be that different depending on how I close my elbow? And I don't know. Right now, I mean, they're working. I don't have a reason to change them. I'm not even going to change them, but if somebody really thinks I should change them, might give it a try. But I don't know if I want to set up anything really fancy, and that's the biggest advantage. I can just grab a dumbbell on these and crank on them. Last time, talked to you guys about how Ilya Kazov does his dumbbell curls, but this is the actual Kazov curl. Really gnarly anterior hip flexor ab exercise, wide on a bench, feet hooked under the cross beam, and we're just gonna lean back, squeeze the glutes, arch over the pad, and curl ourselves back up until it really sucks. Toes in the wrong spot. There we go. Those are gnarly. Gotta run a couple more and check back. So I think that a lot of this, like me talking to you, is forcing me to recognize the difference between knowledge and wisdom. And like knowledge is knowing what to do. Wisdom is whether or not I'm actually doing the thing that I know that I should do. And I have not done the thing that I should do in terms of making good choices in regards to load management, both in training and in meets for a long time. And the thing that I'm the most excited about with this process is that by saying this, by telling you, by putting it out there, in a way it's forcing me to make the changes that I know I should be making. Because if I don't start making the changes that I know I should be making, I don't start making wiser training choices, I'm gonna look like a big fat dumbass, and that ain't the look that I really want to go for. So that's like what has me the most fired up about doing this and this whole process and having this place to share my training and share what I'm going through. And I think like the lesson that from today is that you need to be flexible. And I don't mean like you need to be able to touch your toes to powerlift. Like you do have to have some degree of physical flexibility to get into the positions, but what I mean is you need to be flexible with the plan, because you're not always going to know how the day is going to go or how the day is going to feel when you're going to the gym. And the wise choice on the days when it feels nasty and like it feels like stuff isn't working right is going to be to not force it and not, headbutt a wall and hit some nose torque and get fired up, but to take what's there and do the best that you can to set yourself up for future success. And like I said, it was a difficult call. It's like hard to admit how difficult it really was to pull a quarter off of the bar today, and how like in a way like I'm still am like a little bit embarrassed that I did it, because old Seth would have just done it. And old Seth, as you know, he got hurt a lot. So I'm doing my best to clean up my act. Appreciate you for helping me out with this and sticking around. Hopefully you got something nice out of this session, and peace out. Have a wonderful rest of your day.